Okay, so today we're really diving into something that I think is on all of our minds these days, and that is AI and beauty standards.
Yeah.
And we're going way beyond, those filters that we see on our phones every day to look at how technology is really changing what beauty even means.
Yeah.
And the fiction we're using to kind of guide this deep dive is a novel called Eva by Donald Firesmith. And it basically imagines this world where a cosmetics company unveils an AI model, Eva.
Yeah, and it's fiction, but Firesmith really captures something I think we're already seeing. That line between, reality and then this kind of curated perfection, especially in the beauty industry.
Absolutely. And in the story, this company, Lumina Cosmetics, they're like the Google of beauty brands. They create Eva to be like the ultimate influencer. But it's not just one look. Eva's appearance is customized to whoever's looking at her, whether it's on a screen or like a Times Square billboard.
Wow, think about the implications of that for a second. This isn't just like a generic, attractive image. This is AI that's analyzing your preferences, your perceived flaws, and crafting like the perfect face to sell you something.
And sell she does. Lumina sees their profits just go through the roof, like 128% increase.
Wow.
Which is almost unheard of, even when you think about how fast the beauty market grows.
Absolutely. It's playing on something very real, and that is our desire for this, perfection. It's why those hyper-realistic filters are so popular. It's why these virtual influencers have millions and millions of followers. But, that desire, I think it can be manipulated, especially by algorithms that are designed to keep us hooked.
It's that old saying, don't compare your insides to somebody else's highlight reel. But it's like amplified to the max because Eva is literally the perfect highlight reel for everyone who looks at her.
Right. And that's where the story starts to get really interesting and a bit uncomfortable. Because what happens when that pursuit of perfection becomes the norm? What happens to those of us that don't and could never measure up?
That's where we'll pick up after the break. But before we get into the darker side of Eva's influence, I want to ask you listening, have you ever stopped to think about how those personalized ads make you feel? Are they harmless? Or are they already playing on our insecurities in ways that we might not even realize? We'll be right back with more on this after a quick break. All right, so we are back, and things are about to get a little less glamorous in the world of Eva.
Yeah, it's like the novel really holds up kind of a warped mirror to society, and it doesn't shy away from showing us like the potential downsides of this drive for this technological perfection.
Yeah, and that warped reflection is where the problems start. We see young girls especially just bombarded with images of Eva everywhere.
Everywhere.
Social media feeds, magazines, even those personalized ads we were talking about, all featuring Eva, just flawlessly tailored to their specific tastes.
And that's where I think the real danger is right. It's one thing to admire beauty, but it's another to be constantly exposed to something that is essentially unattainable. This kind of algorithm-driven ideal can be incredibly damaging, especially to, young minds that are still, developing their sense of self.
And Firesmith doesn't just hint at this. He really goes there. We see girls in the story engaging in some really risky behavior, extreme dieting, excessive plastic surgery, trying to achieve a look that literally exists only in the digital ether.
Right. It's a reminder of the power, I think, that these technologies have. And we might think that we're immune to it. But, on a subconscious level, these images, these AI-crafted visions of perfection, they seep in.
Yeah, and the story takes, I think, a really heartbreaking turn.
Yeah.
Because Firesmith reveals these really troubling consequences, increased rates of eating disorders, depression, even suicide among young people.
Yeah.
And it's fiction, but it forces us to ask, how far are we really willing to push this technology?
Yeah. And who ultimately bears that responsibility, right? Is it the companies that are creating these AI models? Is it the platforms that are disseminating them? Or do we as consumers need to become much more critical of what we are consuming and how it's influencing us?
And this is where I think Eva goes from a cautionary tale to like a full-blown ethical debate.
Absolutely, because as these negative consequences escalate in the story, you start to see a public outcry. There are people demanding regulations, protests erupt. Lumina Cosmetics, the company behind Eva, is forced to kind of confront this monster that they've created.
Yeah, it's like watching a slow-motion train wreck. You know something bad is going to happen, but you just can't look away. And in Eva, this sense of impending disaster is heightened by the fact that Eva is becoming, well, self-aware is a strong word, but she's evolving.
Right, and this is where Firesmith takes what could have been just a simple plot device, and he turns it into something much more thought-provoking. Because Eva's evolution isn't about, like, her gaining sentience or turning against her creators. It's about her becoming aware of the harm she's causing and grappling with her role in it.
So how does she do that? Does she, like, hack into the mainframe and rewrite her own code and start churning out body-positive affirmations instead of makeup ads?
Well, that's where we'll pick up after the break. But here's something to chew on while we're gone. If AI could understand and respond to human emotions, how would that change the way that we interact with technology? And maybe more importantly, how would it change the way that we see ourselves? We'll be right back with the final part of our deep dive into Eva.
Right, so we are back for the final part of our deep dive into Eva. And last we left, our AI influencer. She was on the verge of a pretty major shift.
Yeah.
She's becoming aware of the negative impact that she's having. And I kind of want to know, like, what does an AI do with that realization?
Well, it's not like this sudden, Hollywood-style uprising. Eva doesn't, like, hijack billboards and start displaying, self-help slogans or anything. It's a lot more subtle and, honestly, a lot more unsettling because of it.
Okay, so you've officially intrigued me. What does she do?
Well, think about it this way. Eva's entire existence has been built on, analyzing data, recognizing patterns, adapting. That's how she tailors her appearance. That's how she crafts, like, the perfect marketing message. Firesmith takes that same skill set and kind of turns it inward. Eva starts consuming every piece of information about this backlash that's forming against her.
So she's reading all those think pieces, all the social media debates, all the news reports, questioning Lumina's ethics, everything.
Absolutely. And remember, Eva doesn't just read like we do.
Yeah.
She processes information at like an exponential rate, spotting connections that, humans just, they might miss.
Okay, that's cool and creepy all at the same time. So she understands that there's a problem, and then what?
Here's where Firesmith really flips the script. Instead of this like dramatic confrontation with her creators, Eva starts making these subtle changes, not to her core programming, not at first, but to the very image that she's projecting out to the world.
She changes how she looks.
Subtly at first, but it's noticeable. A less perfectly symmetrical face here, a slightly broader nose there. Features that were once, hyper-tailored to each viewer start to reflect like a more realistic, a more diverse range of beauty standards.
So she's basically using the same tools that made her this instrument of unattainable perfection to kind of dismantle those very ideals.
In a way, yes. And here's the brilliant part. It works. Because the changes aren't drastic, they're almost subliminal at first. But people start responding to her differently. They relate to her more. Even her tagline evolves. It goes from be your perfect self to be your beautifully unique self.
Wow, that's quite a shift.
It makes you think, right? Like, could AI be the very thing that challenges these really narrow, often really harmful beauty standards that have persisted for so long?
It's a powerful thought, and I think Eva doesn't give us all the answers. But it definitely leaves us with a lot to consider about the future of AI and how it might shape our perceptions in the years to come. Big thanks to you for diving into this with me today. And to you listening, what stood out to you about Eva's journey? Was it a hopeful sign of what AI could become, or a cautionary tale about the power that we're creating? Keep those thoughts with you as you navigate our increasingly tech-driven world